My name is Dani DiMarco. My pronouns are she, her, and we are currently in the Zoo Imagination Wing at the Lehigh Valley Zoo.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so we are going back to visit a friend today that hasn't been on the pod for a little while now. Actually, quite a while. But when we reconnected recently, I knew we had to do another episode. And of course, I'm talking about Dani DiMarco at the Lehigh Valley Zoo. Now, Dani has been on a couple of times, and you may remember that we did the whole red panda thing at the Lehigh Valley Zoo, where Rossifari fans donated money to help them build their red panda habitat. And because y'all were so awesome and generous there, I got to benefit from that. So thank you all by going to the official grand opening of their red panda habitat and doing an interview there and all this good stuff. And it was awesome and wonderful. And we love the Lehigh Valley Zoo. While I was there, I ran into Dani DiMarco, who I had not seen since I had her on the podcast. And it was instantaneous. We were right back into chatting about all the things. And I just knew we had to bring that to y'all. So here it is. We're going to be going back to the scene of our first interview. And we're going to be catching you up on a whole bunch of cool things going on with the ambassador animals and with just thoughts on training and reaching people for, education and conservation and all that good stuff. And just, it's one of those freewheeling conversations between friends that honestly become some of my favorite episodes. So I'm really excited to share that with y'all. But before I do, a couple quick reminders. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Make sure that you're following along at Rossifari on the socials, at Rossifari Pod on TikTok. Also, don't forget to make sure that you're checking out Penguins International right now. Jungle Jordan, Stephanie Arney, and I are the voices of the March of the Penguin Madness competition. And I think you'll really enjoy those videos. Plus, you get to vote for cute penguins. So, that's exciting. And as a matter of fact, there's a penguin named Curtis who is at the Lehigh Valley Zoo that is in the competition this year. So make sure you check that out and maybe even throw a vote to Curtis. So yeah, with all of that said, I think we're going to get into it. So here is my interview with Dani DiMarco of the Lehigh Valley Zoo. Enjoy.
We are currently in the Zoo Imagination Wing at the Lehigh Valley Zoo, where all of our education animals, or I should say the smaller education animals, live.
Yeah, and this is quite the throwback because we were here, goodness, a couple years ago now.
Yes.
And then I came back as y'all got into the panda situation, and we ran into each other, and I was like, well, we clearly need to talk again. And so here we are. So what's new?
What's new? Well, pandas, they're amazing and adorable and loving the snowy weather of Pennsylvania. We've had a pretty cold winter and they're having the best time. New things for our department since you were here last. I think we have skunks now. We have a porcupine. We have a new owl who's getting ready to do programs eventually. So we got brand new, bigger animals. So we're super excited to work with them, train with them, and get them up on programs.
That's exciting. I think skunks are such an incredibly valuable ambassador animal.
Oh, yes.
For many reasons, but it's not my opinions that matter. So can you share why you think that is the case?
Yeah. So I love having native animals as part of ambassador departments. Not only are they really cute, they can withstand the weather that we have here, but it really helps kids learn and connect with the animals that are right in their own backyards, especially skunks, which have a little bit of a bad rap because they do smell a little bit and you can't get too close to them, which you should always keep your distance from wildlife. But they are really, really fun to learn from. I think kids can learn a lot about our native animals, what they need to survive, and what we can do to help protect them. So having them around, we've brought them to our summer camps already, a couple classrooms. They've gone on zoo reaches where they've gone out into the community. So they've been doing a really good job at kind of explaining the different things that we can help our native animals.
That is very cool. I also think that people who don't see skunks up close, who only see either, dead ones or whatever, or see them and get scared and run, miss something vitally important about skunks, which is that they're stinking adorable.
They have baby face, which is my favorite thing about a skunk, is that their head stays the size of a baby and their bodies just get larger and rounder. So they look like a really fat child the entire life. It's the best thing about them. So I love looking at our two little babies. They're a little over a year now, but they're full grown in terms of size. Heads are still baby heads, and it's the cutest little thing ever.
It really does make such an incredible impact too. Just to I think the same thing with this is why I love flying foxes as well, because they have puppy faces, and you can take somebody who is afraid of bats, and if you can get them to look at the face, which is a challenge sometimes, all of a sudden they're seeing their little puppy face, and it's less scary, you know? And skunks are less scary when they're really cute, and they are really cute.
Yes,
so,
definitely. I think also just getting up close gives people that opportunity to learn about them, get that experience without feeling scared at that point when they see them in their backyards.
Right.
Now, if they see a skunk, they're a little less hesitant. They're like, oh, I know about that animal already. I know if I don't get too close to them, they're not going to spray me. As long as I don't spook it, it's fine. And they're more likely to appreciate having little friends in their backyards.
Yeah, which I think is so important. Such a great way to impact it. Yeah, yeah.
It's the goal. Make them appreciate the things that live there, because we got to share.
And that's what I feel like a lot of the ambassador collection here accomplishes, whether they are specifically local animals or are non-native but have a nice I guess you would say an association, or you could draw some parallels with native stuff.
Definitely. We have some of our animals, obviously, they're not native. We have frogs that aren't native, and lizards and snakes, but all of them represent animals that you could find here, and we can draw that parallel. One of the ones we talk about a lot are our turtles and tortoises, because they're common pets. We have some native turtles, we have some non-native box turtles, and just kind of drawing that parallel. If you see these guys when you're walking or hiking, or they might end up under your porch, and just kind of learning about those animals and drawing that parallel to keep your wild animals wild is really nice.
Yeah, no, very important messaging. And I do love the box turtles here.
Yes, we have 4 pretty incredible box turtles that are all very smart, and they do target training and crate training, and they're doing station training now. So they are very smart little turtles for being turtles. Very proud of our little guys.
Turtles aren't always the brightest, but that's cool. That's very impressive. Yeah. So, moving away from animals for a second into you. What's up? It's been a couple years. What's been going on for you? Here?
Yeah. So I don't remember what my role was the last time we talked, but I'm interpretation coordinator now. I don't know if that's what it was when we talked last. So I work on different types of chats that we do here at the zoo, education program, curriculum. I help with any of the education signage that we have around the zoo. And right now, one of my big projects is Preston's Place, which is down over by our barnyard. It's our native habitat. So I've been working a lot with monarchs and conservation, and doing some citizen science work and recording data for the monarch larval monitoring project, which is super fun.
That is very cool. I actually was just reading about the fact that tracking of monarchs this year was a disaster. The population is way lower than we expected.
It is, yes.
That's unfortunate.
It was already down pretty low. I don't remember the full numbers, but if I'm generalizing and coming up with a number on my own, it was 90% of the population has gone down.
That's what I remember reading.
Something
too.
Like that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty low. And then it's getting even worse, and it's getting harder to find monarchs, track them, and then getting homes for them. So we're part of a project down there which has both milkweed and different plants for them to lay their eggs, but then also food sources for them as well, nectaring sites, to give them a stopover site as they migrate, a different place for them as they go south. They have a home to stop at every once in a while.
And since you're doing that and you're obviously, very big on education and stuff as well, is it a thing where like the public can see that, and like is there signage and stuff explaining what's going on? Or?
There is. So we do have a sign down there that explains we're part of the project. We have some monarch specific signs. We've hosted a couple of monarch projects where they can come and program watch, and we'll have them find monarchs with us, track. And then it is a part of one of our summer camps. Our older group, the 9 to 11-year-old, will participate in the project with us. So they'll go down with me. We'll look for monarchs. We'll fill out the data sheets together. We have a think like a citizen science camp sort of thing. So they'll help us do all the data collection and learn what it's like to collect data.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
that's very
super
cool.
fun. It's fun to see them get really excited. One of the kids, they do a project at the end of the week where they present to their parents all the things they learned. And we had a couple of caterpillars that we were looking at throughout the week, and we had them in the little bug containers, and they got to show off the caterpillars to their parents and the different stages of the caterpillars. And we had a chrysalis there, so they were really excited to show it all off to their parents of everything they learned about monarchs.
Nice.
Is everything I could ever want.
Yeah, of
when
course.
it comes to campers being enthusiastic about anything we do in camp.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's the dream, especially at that age. That's, yeah, very, very cool. I love that. So I'm curious. Last time that I was here, I do remember that it was like what we called post-COVID, but was still COVID. I'm pretty sure like we were masked up for everything, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
Last time I was here with you, obviously with the panda stuff, it was better. But so since then, COVID still exists, but like the
prevalence of it in your brain.
We are post-COVID now, although it still exists. And we're, bird flu hasn't completely destroyed us yet. We're right in the sweet spot.
We're getting there. We'll see.
And we'll give it another week. But, and y'all got pandas.
We did.
So how are things like at the zoo in general? Are things popping off? Are people coming out? How are things looking?
I think we had really good attendance this year. We have people coming out. Our events teams are coming up with really good things to get people in to learn about conservation, get them into the zoo. So far, we've been doing really well post-COVID, it looks like. Still have the people coming in, booking education programs. I know school groups have definitely popped up since then. Nice. Schools have less restrictions about field trips because that was one of the biggest ones. Schools had issues booking because of their restrictions. But overall, it's looking pretty good. I think the zoo's on the up. We have new exhibits coming. We have different projects coming in the future. I don't know officially what they've announced off the top of my head right now, but we have big projects coming that they'll be releasing over down by our barnyard area, which will be really, really cool.
Nice. There's not a lot of room to expand the zoo here, right? Because it's in the nature preserve. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. So we are in the middle of the nature preserve, and we are kind of limited by the fence line. Our perimeter fence line is kind of where we're inside of. So it's a lot of, but we have some old buildings too. So some of it could just be rebuilding old buildings, rearranging different spaces, coming up with new places, or just bettering the animal habitats we already have, which was one of the things we did for our Habitat Madagascar when we opened that one in 2022, I believe. Our lemurs already lived here, so we just built a home for them on the site that we already had. Pandas were a brand new one and just updated a habitat for them. So a lot of it's just getting creative using the spaces that we have, and it's a lot of planning on those teams to figure out where we can place things, what we can do, and what animals would live best in this environment.
Nice. Very cool. And so let's talk about the pandas. So
yes.
we did a whole episode about them, but, they were just getting settled in. As a matter of fact, I actually got to watch that day as a little head poked out for the first time, and they got to experience their exhibit, which was ridiculous.
One of their first times outside.
Just so cool to see. And, you mentioned that they're adapting well to the snow and stuff, but how are they adapting in general? Tell me what their personalities have started to show like, because they were still a little hesitant with everything last time I was here. And also tell me about what guests are saying and experiencing.
Definitely. So we have Miko and Cosmo, they're brothers. So their birthdays end of May. I forget the exact date. So they're a little over a year. And we have Miko, who's a little bit more shy. And then Cosmo is a lot more bold. And if you're trying to tell them apart, go by their faces. Cosmo has a darker face, like Cosmos is how I remember that. Nice. And then Miko has the lighter face. Their favorite food is grapes. They love a good grape. And they've been pretty adventurous when it comes to their habitat. They're exploring a lot. They're going different places. They're climbing the rocks. They've been very playful as well. So you can see them usually in the morning time, playing with each other, running around, chasing each other, just having a good time. The two boys hanging out, roughing it up. So it's a lot of fun to watch them. And I get to see guests all the time come in and get to see them. And they're really excited, just even if they're sleeping, because they're just the cutest, first of all. Can't deny.
Nope,
they're not the cutest.
They are the cutest.
But they're incredible to learn from. And many people don't realize that they come from colder environments and that they're fine in this weather that we have right now, and that they actually prefer it to being warm. So when they come out to the zoo, a lot of times they're like, oh, it's a little too cold to be here. And I'm like, well, actually, it's the best time to see the pandas because the red pandas love it outside right now. So they're having a great time. They've adjusted pretty well, I gotta say, for being outside for the first time for a full outdoor exhibit. Wind is a little scary at times because it's invisible. So
That's
wind
fair.
can be very scary.
That's fair.
But they got used to wind pretty well. So it's a really fun to watch them settle in and kind of find their own spaces where they like to hang out, their favorite snacks and what they want to eat.
I think the thing that I find the most, I don't know, ironic's not the right word, but in the Alanis Morissette version of the word ironic, is that there's a Miko here that is shy and peaceful, and the little, like, more laid back one. And then there's another Miko who is possibly the most outgoing and assertive diva I've ever met.
We have 3 Mikos here, which is the best part about all of it. But our Miko that we're referring to, our very rambunctious and boisterous animal, is Miko the raccoon. Yes. And she is one of our ambassador animals. And she enjoys meeting people. She enjoys her snacks, does not enjoy snow as much as all the other animals, especially the red pandas. She likes to find the spaces that don't have snow to walk on, for sure.
Well, and explain that, because you were telling me about that a little bit. Because that story is just adorable.
It's adorable. So Miko, we will clean off her stairs to get in and out of her box so that doesn't have snow on it. She's a native animal and snow is normal for her. So we try to leave snow in the habitat, but she doesn't like walking on it. So we have to kind of have a good balance of different places where there's not snow and then there is snow, so that she has different opportunities to walk in it if she wishes, but she mostly chooses to avoid it at all cost. She is a diva.
So funny to me. Just ridiculous. And I remember when we hung out with Miko, she was just so much.
Oh, she is.
So much. And this was early enough in Rossifari where I had met like a fair share of animals, but nothing like what I have now. And I was completely unprepared for an animal that was as Miko as Miko is.
She is.
It's just astonishing.
She is an individual all of her own. I don't know if we would ever get another animal like her, just her personality by itself.
Yeah.
She is all her own. Still loving her encounters, meeting people. She'll do and behaviors now. We have a bunch of behaviors that she's learned. I don't know if at that time she knew recycle yet.
I think you were working on it, if I
She
remember
fully
correctly.
knows recycle, so
nice.
she can recycle water bottles now. She does spinning, high fives. She's got it all going for her, and
Ridiculous.
she's willing to learn anything. She has a voluntary injection behavior that she's done really, really well with to help participate in her healthcare. So she is very willing to work with us, which we appreciate, especially as an ambassador, because we go right in there with her and get down and dirty. So if she's fine with it, we're going to try.
That's awesome. And you mentioned another one of the new ambassadors was porcupine?
Yes.
What kind of porcupine do you have?
So she's a North American porcupine.
Nice.
Her name is Betty.
Okay.
And currently she is not a winter animal. Native but not a fan.
You just have a bunch of divas.
She's the queen, if you were to prefer. So, not a fan of the winter. But we're working on it. She's about to turn 2. So she also is young. And last year was her first winter. This is her second. And it's been a very cold winter. But very much like other animals, wind is scary. Noises are scary. And she'd prefer to just hang out in her box in the winter. So we're working with her. She came out the other day and fully crated and did all the stuff because it was warmer. But we're going with it. But she does in the summertime do programming. We had her, she went off site. She's gone to summer camps. She's been doing a really good job. She's still in the training process though, because she's very new at everything.
Sure. There's a person looking at us right now.
Hello. How are you? I am. Yeah. Sounds good.
That was funny.
He's here.
Yeah, he's here. I'm excited. Yeah. I'm going to leave that in. So, y'all, that was Dr. Steve Marks, who is on Safe Red Panda with me and has been on the podcast before, and we are buds, and just popped in to say hi, and I just love that. So that was quite entertaining. But going back to what we were talking about, so you are in charge of the ambassador department, right?
No.
What is your title? Remind me.
So, right, I'm an interpretation coordinator. So I help with day-to-day tasks, education programming. I can do some of the stuff that helps with running the department, but I have my boss is Cher Vadalero. She's the director of conservation education. So I have a supervisor who runs all of us. She controls the monkeys of the circus.
So is Cher the person who is in charge of who you would say is above, like top person above the ambassadors?
Yes. So it's a weird way we kind of make our department. So we have education, who runs all of the education programs. We work with all the animals, but we do have animal keepers that work in our department because our educators don't do the actual keeping of the animals. So we're kind of split. So if you're looking for a person, if you're looking for someone running education programs and helping with decisions for the animals, Cher's there, but we also have our lead keeper and assistant curator who run the animal side of things. So it's kind of a split department, which is very unique to this zoo. At least I haven't had many zoos that do that, where we have like a mix of departments. Usually it's an ambassador program that runs all their ambassador stuff and an education program that's completely separate.
Yeah.
But we're kind of mixed together, which makes it great because we get to train animals as educators and we work closely with all the animals. But we still have other staff who are incredible, who do all the keeping for us. And Brianna's amazing. So
that is,
and her and Meg are amazing, and I love them. So.
That is actually really fascinating and really different. And I'm curious, but we're going to talk about that more. But I was just making a dumb joke. I was going to say whoever's in charge of Cher or whatever. It's like, all I'm going to say is that you've got a porcupine who is a native animal but is too much of a diva. And you've got a raccoon that is a native animal but is too much of a diva. And I think that just goes to show that whoever's in charge must be a bit of a diva.
I think you can make the joke anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm making the joke. Yeah.
I'm going to make the joke about her anyway.
Yes, so Cher is clearly a diva and is passing that along to her animals. That was where I was going with this. But we actually got into something interesting here, which I actually really love when that happens. Sometimes my stupidity leads to positivity. So talk to me about, the benefits of doing it that way.
The benefits were, so when they kind of made the switch, so I was actually the first education hire that was after we separated the two departments. Back 4 years ago at this point. But we had keepers. So we have 2 keepers that are full-time, and then a swing keeper that comes in as well and helps out, that take care of our animals. They do a great job making sure foods, diets, everyone's clean. They have their medications, whatever needs to be done every day. So they're fully dedicated to just the care of our animals. And then we have all of our education staff who run the education program. So anything that brings them out in the exercise yard for kind of demonstrations. We do the field trip programs, summer camps, kind of all of your typical education stuff. But then all of our educators also do animal training. So we have to train our animals to get them to come out for programs, especially for choice and control purposes. So it's really important for our educators to be involved. with the animals. And the switch allowed us to have more time to run education programs, to run more education programs by not having to do any of the keeping, because it is a full-time job in and of itself.
Yeah, definitely.
So having the two departments has been great in letting us reach more kids, reach more people. And it also has helped our animal training program because we have a little bit more time, especially with two departments training behaviors. We have more people working with the animals, which means more training, and we can kind of keep behaviors maintained as much as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's the best of both worlds, but we're a smaller zoo, so we're able to do something like this.
Right.
It does come with a lot of collaboration. We're working with multiple departments. I mean, the keepers have a different manager than I have, so it definitely is a mix of different things. But we work well together, and there's definitely it's been a great time kind of watching the program develop and having all of the people involved taking care of all of our fun animals.
Yeah. That's really cool. I think that's interesting. My favorite thing about it is just how it gives more people and time for training.
Yes.
Because training is something that often, especially at smaller facilities, falls by the wayside a bit. Why? There's a sign that says closed. There's just a dude knocking and waving.
Hi, we're closed.
See, look at the sign, read the word.
So Z-Wing is open at 11:15. It is not 11:15.
It is not.
The sign says closed. We do open this room to the public so guests can see it. It's currently closed.
Which is actually another cool thing that you guys do here. It bums me out is way too strong of a phrase, but I get to go and do this a lot, where I go into the ambassador areas and meet the collection.
Yeah.
Sometimes for an episode, sometimes just because people like me, which is great. And sometimes I'm like, last time I was here, we had box turtles out. We were playing with a fennec fox. We had so much stuff going on. And then those animals, unless they're brought out for a program, are just never seen. And I get that there are pros and cons to both, but I'm curious what your thoughts and feelings are about why it makes sense to open this room to the public when there's not an interview actively going on and a closed sign on the door, sir. Anyway, but yeah.
Yes. No, it is. I think it's important for guests to see the animals that are behind the scenes. Other than booking education programs, we do want them to see what we do and talk about what we do. It also leads to people booking more programs, just in that and of itself, of getting them involved and just giving them the knowledge that we exist here. But it's just another indoor space for them to come and see. We have a lot of animals here you can't see anywhere else in the zoo. Honestly, most of our animals are not either in our reptile building or other places. So it really just gives them a chance to learn about more animals. And it also is a great way for them to connect with some of our volunteers. So our docents run the Zoo Imagination Wing when it's open. So it's through our docent coordinator, Sav. She'll kind of bring them in. All of our docents who are our long-term volunteers come in and do a lot of work learning about the animals, educating. So it's another great opportunity for other people to get involved in our department and then just teaching kids.
Nice. Very, very, very cool. Now, I have to ask, because I keep saying ambassador because I'm stubborn and that's the word that I know, but it's Zoomagination here, right?
Yes.
And so why, and I know a lot of thought usually goes into that kind of thing. And so what are we going for with that?
So I wasn't here when they originally named it, but the Zoo Imagination Wing, I think, came from the thought that we have a set thing, we have our set list of things that we want to cover, that we want to talk about, but really we could talk about anything. And it's up to the kids' questions, their imagination, and what they want to know. And we're willing to kind of meet them where they're at. If they have questions that are not on topic 100%, but it's still educational and it's still something that they might need to know, we're welcome to kind of do what we need to do in our programs to meet them where they're at and kind of answer all their questions. So really their imagination kind of runs the program. We try to tell them we answer all questions. We'll see.
That's interesting. That's really cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I like that. I was recently at a facility, and I'm blanking on which one it is right now. It might be Maryland Zoo. And they don't call them ambassador animals, but they call them embassy animals, like where an ambassador is. And I was like, that's such a small distinction, but okay, it works. Whatever makes you happy, you know? But Zoo Imagination is That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I
Do you
think we go back and forth, so they are technically considered our ambassador animals and stuff. So we're at least still that's used interchangeably, but at least the place they're housed is called our Zoo Imagination Wing. So this is the Zoo Imagination Wing is where they all live.
Cool. And do you find that by bringing that into it, by using that terminology, that it encourages kids to use their zoo imagination?
We hope so. We always want them to come in with an open mind and want to learn. So I hope that they feel they have that freedom while we are teaching and kind of educating. It is informal in that sense of we want them to come up with things and learn what they want to learn sometimes. So if they have sparks of inspiration of things and questions that they have, we're open to it and ready to kind of answer their questions. And hopefully it's really fun because they think of things that we forget about. So if they can think of something that I haven't thought of, that's a really cool experience for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nice. Very cool. So when I was here last for the Panda Gala, you were doing a lot of, I'm going to call it unintentional interpreting, because people were asking questions and stuff. And in particular, I think when I first bumped into you, you were just over by that whole section of birds.
I think I was talking about a vulture.
Yes,
if I remember correctly.
You were.
I was talking about vultures.
You were spitting facts like you were in a rap battle.
Yep.
You were in your element. And I was like, oh my God, I love watching you do this.
Yeah.
And we didn't really talk about your bird collection in any of the interviews we've done here.
Yes.
So you want to spit some facts about some of the birds you got over there?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
you like doing that.
I do. So I think what I was talking about was our either black vulture or we have a turkey vulture. And my favorite facts about them usually get kids really interested because they'll poop and pee on their legs to cool themselves down, which is gross. And kids love gross things, like they're all for gross things. And then I like to talk about just their heads and why they don't have feathers on them. Cause, if you imagine sticking a feathered head inside of a carcass, it's going to get really, really gross. So it's one of those trying to get kids to get to that point, and being like, why do you think they don't have feathers on their head? And seeing if they can get there and be like, what do they eat? Why would that be beneficial? Or just telling them because you don't want gunk stuck in your feathers. It's gross. And then, we have those two. I love talking about, we have our eagles that are there. I don't know when this is going to air, but go birds, because the Eagles are at the Super Bowl. So I'm going to say it. Go birds. But we have our two eagles, which are really fun because a lot of the animals, in our bird collection are rehabbed animals. So both of our eagles, do have wing injuries. So that's another really cool thing to talk about is, the different ways we can help animals in a zoo, whether it is, just conservation related and having SSP programs, or it's taking in rehabbed animals that might not be able to survive on their own. So a lot of our birds over there have injuries, and talking kids through why a bird couldn't be released and what adaptations we've made in their habitat, lower perching, different things we do to make those animals more comfortable. So I love talking at the bird section in general, mostly because they can't find the birds sometimes. So it's fun trying to find them. But other than that, it's a good time to learn about all of our friends over there.
Nice.
I like Marshmallow the barred owl. She's fun. They love that one.
Yeah.
Just her name itself is just super cute.
It's such a good
Marshmallow
name.
the barred owl.
I get so annoyed, and it's very rare, but at facilities that either don't want to name their animals or that will use quotation marks when they put up the names like on social media or whatever, because I'm just like, dude, it helps people connect. And I get the idea behind it. I do. I respect the idea behind it.
Yes.
Ish. But
it's a choice.
I have a strong opinion on this. Yes. But I watch when any educator at any facility I've been at, or I think when I'm standing looking at an animal with my headphones in, I probably look completely unapproachable and scary. And like to a kid, I'm like not a small dude.
Yeah.
But the number of kids that just when I'm standing at a zoo will turn and look at me and be like, who's this or what's this? And I often know, thanks to Rossifari and stuff. Yeah. And the number of times that I look at a kid and say, so this is a red panda. And they already have glazed over, or, oh, this is an endangered animal, and they've already glazed over. And if I say, this is Miko, and Miko is red panda, they're in love with Miko. And I've witnessed it so many hundreds of times between my own experiences and sitting with people like you. I remember the name Marshmallow from that day because you were sharing it with kids and they were exploding. Like it really, especially when it's a fun name.
Oh, yes.
And I totally respect doing like, names that honor the country of origin or something like that. Like there's that makes a lot of sense to me too.
Yes.
But I will also say, just purely from a like reaching people and especially kids, Marshmallow is a fantastic name.
Fantastic name.
Right?
Yes.
I know so many people for a long time at the Columbus Zoo. There were 4 red pandas there.
Okay.
And they were Gen So, General So from like Gen So Chicken, right?
Yes.
And Cora and Santi and Bandit because of like the bandit mask.
Yep.
And the number of times that I would have people ask me, hey, how are the pandas at Columbus doing? How's Gen So and Bandit and the other ones? And they care, but like they can relate because we've all had General Tso's chicken and the bandit. It just makes sense. And it's been interesting to see that and kind of, form my own opinion on it. But I just think that's amazing. Marshmallow is going to make people connect.
It is. I think so a really hot topic in education right now is building empathy for animals and how that can lead to more conservation actions, whether that could be just picking up trash on the side of the road, donating, getting more involved. So giving a name to an animal, having a story around that animal can build a connection, which can start that empathy process of feeling empathy toward animals, wildlife, and wanting to connect. So I think it can be very important to have names with those animals. I know each zoo does it differently. Our animals' names aren't written on our signs. It's really just when you show up, if there's someone there to talk to you about them, you can. I mean, we do post their names in social media things. But it is important, I think, for having names to animals to kind of build that connection, to get people started on the process of caring about wildlife in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think it is. It's cool. Plus, like, even beyond empathy, it is empathy. It's a connection, but just like, it's not beyond empathy. It's part of empathy, but I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but it's such a deeper connection.
It is. I think, because even if it's, it's kind of that same thing of like meeting them where they're at. They might not be ready to do any of the actual conservation work, but just getting them to remember the animals at the zoo and care starts that process of just wanting them to like animals in general and just seeing them as not just things.
Yeah.
So I think that just building that deeper connection of just connecting with an animal just for that connection without having to do anything outside of it conservation related is important, because it does build those starting blocks, but they could say they're the rest of their life and that's totally fine as well. Yeah. As long as they have that little bit of like, oh, wow, it is an animal and not a thing.
And then maybe the next time they, see an animal on the side of the road, they don't swerve to hit it, which is a thing that some people weirdly do.
That is a weird thing to do.
But even if it's a red panda or a tegu that you learn the name of, it can build that basic connection to the point where then when you see a armadillo or a skunk on the side of the road. Not that you hit a skunk because smell, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. I literally, like, growing up in central Pennsylvania, knew people that did that and were proud of it and would brag about it. And so like there's a lot of stuff that goes on that, especially to animal loving people like us and people listening to this podcast, you can't even process that.
It's hard. I do hear the stories because people love to tell you stories, and sometimes they tell you stories that you don't understand why they said that, because a lot of kids will come up and say, oh, my dad will kill snakes with a shovel. Yeah. And I'm like, thank you for telling me that. I appreciate that. Let's talk about why we can let our native snakes live.
Let's talk about why we should kill your dad with a shovel. I mean, let our native snakes live. Sorry. I was like, let's let native snakes live. And it's a really kind of awkward moment a lot of times for educators. We're like, how do we broach this topic of you're telling me about doing the opposite of what I want you to do, and you're a child. So like your dad is your role model and you have no idea, like you're like proud in that sense and you have no idea why. So kind of trying to educate back from that can be difficult, but it's a fun challenge for all of us when we get those comments, because it's usually when you ask, do you have a question? And then it's a million comments. So explaining that a question starts with who, what, when, where, and why, maybe a how. And one time something important, because if not, it's like, my dad did this. I'm like, that's not a question, but we can talk about it because I'm going to turn it into a question now. But that's always, it starts sometimes with the kids. Sometimes the adults are a little harder to reach. So if we can get the kids on board, we'll start there. Yeah, no, I agree. Although I will say, one of the things that I find fascinating is that I have my digital reach, which is, we're around 120,000 followers now between Insta and TikTok.
Look at you.
And yeah, it's been a weird, especially this year has been weird and lovely and scary and everything.
Not a more deserving podcast to get
thank you. I appreciate that. But it's, my followers are often in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. That's my main, 70%.
Yeah.
And they want to learn and they want to be educated. And I do think, got to focus on the next gen. Absolutely. They're going to be the ones that save this planet, if anyone will.
Yes.
But I have actually been surprised at how open to discussion people, adults who are set in their ways a lot of times are.
Yes.
Now, also not. I have been threatened and cursed out and all kinds of fun things. But there have been conversations that I've dived into fully expecting it to degenerate quickly and have to back out and block or whatever.
Yes.
And 40 minutes later, a person is talking about going and checking out their local accredited zoo and giving it a chance and thinking. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I think we do get that mix. Or there's a group of adults that are interested in learning. They want to know more. They understand there's a lack of information, and it probably, whatever they already know is probably not right. We do get the people who are not interested in learning more. We get both.
Sure.
We have a lot of adult programs that we will run where adults come in for programs. And I think sometimes those are more rewarding than the kid programs because kids are fascinated by everything. So those programs you're expecting fascination with animals and facts and new things. You can give them the fun, crazy facts and their faces light up or they're like, ew, that's gross. It's like, it sticks. But when we run some of our adult programs, you get some adults that they were like, I didn't expect to be this excited about it. And that's where it gets really fun, is if an adult comes in and you've almost changed their mind or perspective on something, whether it's a lasting big thing or it's just something even super small. That's always fun to experience when they change their mind or they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like, you're getting there.
Definitely. No.
One at a time.
I can't remember what it was, but many, many years ago, I read a book that it was a psychology book, and it explained that a completely neutral person on any topic, on average, there was a study done. But it takes 7 positive interactions to start to change a neutral mind.
Okay.
And then you add any negative interactions, and that gets harder.
Yeah.
And you add any negative preconceptions, and that number goes up, And I think about that a lot because it whether it's an exact, again, I didn't look at the study, but I'll take that as that this seems fair. That seems like something I could at least understand. And so I think about that a lot because even if I do have a positive conversation with someone who at the end is like, yeah, I don't care, zoos are evil, whatever. But it was a positive chat. Okay, maybe I was number 3. And maybe since they have that preconception, it's going to be out of 20. But then maybe they'll talk to you someday and you'll be number 4 or number 6, or what I mean? And I think about that a lot because, I say this a lot on the podcast, but when I got into this, I was very in love with zoos. But I didn't know about accreditation. I didn't know good versus bad zoo. I didn't know any of that stuff. And I didn't care about conservation. I just liked animals. I didn't even know that red pandas were endangered when I first fell in love with them. You know what I mean? And all of those interactions that I had with zookeepers all across the country as I was touring, who couldn't tell you one of their names, who don't know that it was me that they were talking to, is what led to Rossifari and reaching, in some weeks, a couple million people online when stuff goes viral and stuff, and to all of the positive messaging and all of the sharing and all that, it all came from those people and they don't even know it. And I don't even know it. And it's like the most beautiful thing in the world. And that's one thing I think about a lot. Like, you don't know when you're talking to a kid about a vulture that 20 years later, they're a vulturologist. That's not the right word, but
I don't know which one it is, but we'll take it.
Sure. And, and you have no clue. And that's amazing.
Yeah. You can reach a lot of people and you don't know the impact you have. I think that's something we see a lot. And everyone does surveys after their programs and stuff, but you don't really know if someone left a program liking it. Sometimes their faces are very blank and you feel like, wow, I didn't say a single word. They didn't like me at all. They hated this entire process. And then they come back with like just the regular survey of like, how did you like your experience? What did you learn? And they actually say they loved it. And I'm like, I would not have read that on your face. So it's one of those, like, always just talk. And sometimes you don't even know you're making an impact, and you actually are.
I will tell you, one of the funniest things about this podcast for me is I love this stuff, obviously. And I'm almost always having a great time when I'm doing interviews. Almost always. But like, we have days and we have lives. And I've been very fortunate to have really good guests. But there have been a couple of episodes where at the end of the interview, I said my goodbye, and I got off and I was like, well, that was crap. And not the guest, me. I did a terrible job. I wasn't feeling it. I was, something was going on in my life, whatever. And I was crap. And I like did a disservice to the guests. This has only happened a couple of times in 5 years, but it has happened. And literally every single time that has happened, when I go back and edit, because it's, a month or two at least before things come out, I'm fascinated by everything going on. It was a fine interview, if not a great interview. And a couple of times, there was one that I released recently, and I'm not going to say who it was, but again, it was me. I felt like I did a terrible job. Not only when I listened back, I was like, oh, that was really good. But it was one of my most commented on episodes. People were writing to me to say how great it was and stuff. And, and at the time you walk away and you're like, well, that wasn't good. And I'm not normally like that, but we all have those moments.
Everyone has moments. I feel like that's something that everyone, at least in education, I can relate to, where some programs you're like, yeah, that was great. I did so good. And others you're like, that was a program. I did my job and I was there. But was it amazing? We all have those days. But then you're like, even you might have reached one kid in that what you thought was just a program, and it made the difference to them. And you don't know what impact you have. So it's so fun to watch.
And 20 years later, they're a vulturologist.
Vulturologist, they're studying vultures. They're collecting pee off a vulture's legs or something. It's great.
Awesome. Well, this has been a blast. But before we get going, we got a couple of things we got to do, of course. First of all, any conservation organization you'd like to give a shout out to?
I feel like I'm gonna stick with my butterflies. So I've been working a lot with the Monarch Larval Monitoring Project, which is the Monarch joint venture, is the company, or the nonprofit, I should say, that runs that, and the Monarch Safe. I think they're the Monarch Safe program as well.
Safe Monarch Butterfly.
There it is. Yes. I was like, there's a Monarch Safe program. I don't know the official title.
We have to say safe first for those programs. And it is so hard. It doesn't sound right to me.
It doesn't sound right to me. Yeah. No, that is very fair. So I know both of those organizations are doing a lot of work right now, especially because monarchs are, populations are going down. They're trying to find different ways to help out in whatever way you can. So I'm pushing my monarchs today.
I like it. It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show, but there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
I'm gonna tell the story of our pancake tortoise, and they are notorious for going to the bathroom on program. And I'm in a program, it's an auditorium of 500 kids, maybe less, probably like 250 kids. And they're all sitting on the floor, in like a gymnasium, and I'm walking down the aisle. We're talking, we're learning about animals. And does this tortoise not do the most projectile poop you've ever seen on me, on the floor? The entire 250 group of kids is flabbergasted and, oh my God, they're freaking out. And then trying to get 250 kids back from a tortoise going to the bathroom is very, very difficult. Plus now I'm doing the rest of the program covered in poop, which was super fun. So I want to thank Mwamba for that, because that was his problem and he did that to me.
Nice.
So I thank you so much, Mwamba, as I stare at him right now. Thank you so much for that. You really, those kids remember that program when the tortoise pooped on the girl that brought the animals with them.
That's amazing. That. Awesome. Well, thank you again for doing this. Always a blast. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, we just went for a walk around the zoo.
We did.
And it was quite lovely. And I actually told you a story that my listeners haven't heard yet, but they will in the future.
I love having behind the scenes stuff.
I love
knowing things that they don't know yet. I'm diabolical.
But yeah, so there were some cool animals that we saw that I thought we'd just talk about quick. So, I wanted to start off with the new little one. So tell me about David.
Yeah, so we have a brand new baby Eland. He's the first one born here at the zoo, so we're very happy to have him. His parents, Moira and Code. So his mom's name is Moira, his sister's name is Alexis. It only makes sense that thankfully David won the naming contest. So we have that little guy. He was born at 60 pounds, so I keep calling him a little guy, but he was really big. He was ginormous.
Yeah.
But we're so happy to have him. He's part of an SSP program. So we're just very excited to have another little running around here.
Yeah, that's very cool. And there's nothing to announce yet, but there's at least the hope for some baby otters, in that there is some breeding going on that we got to see. And but you were telling me some interesting stuff about this. So tell me about your otters and the interesting thing you were telling me about otter mating.
Yes. So we have two otters, Piper and Luwani, and they are a recommended SSP breeding pair. So we are always hopeful, fingers crossed, whenever they're ready, we are ready for babies. But it is a waiting game, and whenever she is ready is the key. So they have delayed implantation. So she can hold off implanting a fertilized egg for up to 10 months, which is a really long time. So we can track whenever they're feeling up to doing anything, but we won't know for certain until she decides she is ready. So we give her access inside to her den all the time so that if she wants to hang out in there and that's where she feels comfortable, that's great. But it is kind of up to her. So Piper calls the shots when it comes to having babies. But they like each other, which is always good for us. They seem to get along really well. So we are very hopeful. But again, she calls the shots here, which I mean, fair. She should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair, she should. But also, like, girl, we want to have some fun, little cute babies.
10 months is just crazy.
It's a long
That's
time.
so long.
And gestation is only about 2 months, so it's not even that long for how long she's going to be pregnant. It's just going to be.
It could take a full year, and only 2 months of that is the pregnancy.
Exactly.
That's insane.
So we can track any time that they're feeling it, and we wouldn't know what's going to happen next.
I have a weird question.
Okay.
So what happens if she does, like the egg does get fertilized and then she doesn't want to implant for any reason? Like, does it just absorb or fade away, or like what happens after those 10 months?
I have no idea. That's a great question.
I'm genuinely curious.
I would assume it's kind of similar where she just won't implant and then nothing happens to it. It kind of just dissolve or whatever scientific word that is for it to do. But I don't know for certain what would actually happen.
Okay. I was just curious.
I mean, I'm sure if she's not feeling like it's a safe place to be, she's not going to want to have a baby in that safe place or a non-safe place. So otters have a way around that. I just don't remember what it is.
That makes sense. I mean, and of course she's obviously very comfortable here, so I don't think that would be a concern here.
No.
In general, I was curious. I never thought about that before.
No, I honestly haven't either.
Interesting.
No one's ever asked me that either, so I don't have an answer.
Very tricky. Very tricky.
Tricky.
And then we also were spending some time with the wolves.
Yes.
And so can you just talk a little bit about the wolves here?
I can. So we have 3 wolves. They're part of the SSP and they're part of Fish and Wildlife's program. So they're actually in a special habitat where they have access to kind of front of the house where everyone can see them roaming around. And they have a behind the scenes space they have access to all the time. So they can completely leave us whenever they want into that behind the scenes space and never be near people if they want to, because they are part of a release program where their pups, if they were to have them, could be part of that release. And we want them to teach their babies to be cautious of humans in case they are out there in nature and around humans all the time. So they are really special. In the winter, it's easier to see them. There's less noise, so they're less afraid to come out. The water feature is turned off in the winter time, so you can usually see them kind of roaming around. Today, we saw them playing on the ice, having a good time. But they're one of my favorite animals when you do get a chance to see them. It's a special time when they do decide to come out and grace us with their presence.
Yeah, this was the only time I've been here that I've seen them up close. I've seen some in the back a little bit, but this was amazing.
Yeah, they walk. You can see their trails that they walk and they'll like roam and guard their territory, and you can see the trails they follow and where they go.
Yeah, I thought it was so funny because I always say all cats are cats. Like all cats are house cats, and you see a lion and they're doing the same stupid stuff a house cat does. But it was really funny watching the one wolf play on the ice in particular. It was doing the like smoosh its face on the ice thing that like my dogs do when I take them. And I was like, okay, so all dogs are just dogs too.
Canines are canines, no matter what animal it is. Exactly. Yeah. They definitely do that same thing where you watch them and you're like, wow, you really do have those dog tendencies that you look just like a dog. Same with our cats. We'll put a box in there, and if it fits, it sits. Like we're in the box, and that's where we live now.
So funny.
So yeah, that's still in there.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, I just wanted to talk through a couple more of the animals. So thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks so much.
There are some people that I have met doing this podcast that are not big names and are not super well known or whatever, but that just inspire the heck out of me so much. And Dani is one of those people. And I'm sure listening, you could figure that out and figure out why. When I went to the big fancy panda gala thing and saw her, the second we made eye contact, we both lit up. And I was like, oh my gosh, how have I not had you back on the podcast? And now I have. And I'm so excited to be able to say that because honestly, just what an awesome human. And if you are one of those newer listeners and you haven't heard her earlier episodes, you've got to check them out. I just love meeting amazing people at these like small, not super well-known zoos. And yeah, Dani is just, I mean, let's be honest. Everyone at the Lehigh Valley Zoo that I have interacted with is incredible. I can genuinely say that. But even amongst the incredible people that I've met there, Dani really does stand out. So Dani, thank you for taking the time to wander the zoo with me and do the interview and laugh and chat and listen to me ramble on myself. It's just so fun. I just love what I get to do here, y'all. I would like to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Kevin Williams, Melissa Reed, and John Lewis, also known as Also Here for the Stickers. And I'd like to remind you all to be back here on Friday for an all-new Rossifari Zoo News. And until then, remember, friends, the word, credits backwards, is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.